Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order. First item on our agenda is the approval of our agenda for the day.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Seeing none. Approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bill Christian, Metropolitan Council of Governments, come on up. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, I'm sorry, but Jenny's not here, so do we have to do that at 8?
She'll be right up.
Okay, well, we'll wait just a
But
second.
it's, Mr. Chair, it's a little, we could open the hearing, but
Yeah, we've got a few minutes. Maybe she'll be here at 8:35, so. Wayne, you want to give your report? We might as
Sure.
well get a couple of those done while we got time, so.
on Tuesday, February 3rd, the Warren Planning Commission, general business, and there was a request for a vacation of a utility easement in A-Strip Second Edition, a request of Churches United for the Homeless for an amendment for a conditional use permit to increase the resident capacity. The police and fire departments have given their approval to the request, and all conditions have been met. Both of the requests were unanimously approved by the Planning Commission and will now go on to the City Council. Wednesday, February 4th, Clay County Collaborative Governance Board meeting. General business, the review of program reports from the wraparound program, restorative justice, the follow-along program, basic needs and family support, homeless families, and reentry services. Then we went over the budget reports for 2015 and reviewed the operational budget for 2016. Thursday, February 5th, Local Advisory Council for Children's Mental Health. General business, we discussed the spotlight on mental health that was held on January 27th. Went over and discussed the surveys for community mental health needs. Several different ideas were expressed. Went over the Department of Human Services mental health priorities for 2015. And then we had agency reports from Clay County Social Services, Clay County Collaborative, Lakeland Mental Health Center, Kindred Family Focus, and Solutions. And that's what I have, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Wayne. Okay, it's time for a public hearing. We have a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we have a public hearing, proposed Clay County Stormwater Management System Ordinance. Chief Assistant County Attorney Jenny Smarja. Good
And
morning.
Nathan.
Morning. Nathan Gale
And
is
Nathan.
here.
I'm sorry, Nathan.
He's the man.
He's the man. He is responsible for putting together the ordinance as you see it amended, and we presented it to you in your packet, although it doesn't look like it on the first few pages. If you get to, well, it's not numbered, but if you get probably about halfway into that packet, you can see blue inserts and red crossouts, so you can see exactly the changes to this ordinance. This is a stormwater sewer system regulatory ordinance that we were required to put into our county code in order to maintain our license, and we did so, I believe it was back in 2013. Was the very first ordinance, or the very first resolution that you passed in 2013. So early in the year of 2013, and we've had it in place ever since. Minnesota Pollution Control has revised our permit and was requiring these changes. So there was a good synopsis of the changes that we needed to make, although they're different from ordinance to ordinance. So Nathan had to take those suggestions and incorporate them into our existing statute. So that is what you see in the end part of the packet here, all the inserts, all the deletions, and where they fit best. We have published this for public hearing, see if there's anyone that wants to make comment about the changes. So that is in order, and we are asking this board to pass the resolution attached that adopts the amended MS4 regulatory ordinance. And we would then just go ahead and substitute what you have in your packet for the existing ordinance. Would keep us in compliance then with MPCA, and we wouldn't have any worries about our permit. So Nathan has attached a memorandum on the back of the first page. I asked him just to summarize the changes that were made, because there's some definite subject areas that were changed, and I'll turn it over to him to go through those, and if you have questions about the content of the ordinance, he's the expert on that.
Nathan.
The majority of the changes revolved around what the MPCA is going to require people who put together developments to do. If you're going to build a new development in our MS4 area, you have to make sure that the conditions, the stormwater conditions before you build, match what they do after you build. So if you add a whole bunch of new concrete roads or paved roads or driveways or rooftops, that area runs off quicker than it did when it was bare ground, field, or whatever. What the MPCA is requiring people to do is in areas of new construction, the stormwater that leaves the site has to do it in about the same amount of time that it did previously. So the other thing is for areas that are being redeveloped, they're also requiring a reduction, and that's not only in volume as to how much comes out or goes out of the system, it's also in total suspended solids, total phosphorus, total suspended solids and total phosphorus. But in areas that are already developed, all they're requiring you to do is show a reduction. And you have to do that through various different techniques that they consider best management practices. Where it be infiltration, building grit chambers to hold this material in place so that it can be vacuumed out and taken to a landfill or whatnot. There's a toolbox that the developers can look at on the MPCA's website to gain ideas. The other thing that the revisions talk about is if they can't meet these requirements on their site, they're also allowed to do them at the nearest, most practical location, preferably within the watershed that the work is being taken place in.
So they have to buy that?
They would, yeah. If they can't fit it within their right-of-way, within the land that they currently have, they would have to. Or if they have other property, they would make the changes at that location.
And Nathan, what would be the effect of not adopting these changes to our ordinance?
We would be out of compliance with our permit.
Mr. Chair,
Wayne?
today is the public hearing. At this time, nobody is here speaking about it. Have you heard anything other from today from anyone?
No, and when we were required to be re-certified as a permit holder, we also had to submit documents stating to the MPCA what we were going to be doing to come into compliance with these new revisions. That was posted statewide for anybody to comment on, and at that time, when that posting happened, we didn't receive any comments at that time either.
Thank you very much.
Frank?
Who's going to measure this, whether it's being done or not? Is the county going to be responsible if there's a development going up? Do we have to go out there and inspect them then? And can we determine whether the runoff is sufficient or?
We would, yes. We would be required to do it, but we would do it through, we would require the developer to pay to run the calculations and to make sure that they are doing what they say they're doing. they would have to hire an independent engineering firm to verify that. We already currently are required to go out and monitor all stormwater ponds, all outfalls within the county, and have been doing that for about the last 8 years.
So do you, doesn't like the city of Moorhead have their own MS4?
They do, that's correct. And
So,
North.
so Oakport has their own too, don't they?
No, Oakport does not.
Okay, I
No,
think it
they're
went,
included in ours.
okay, that must have changed then, because when I was on the board there, I think we had our own MS4.
Yeah, the Oakport Township is not listed as a small MS4 in
Okay,
the state of
all
Minnesota.
right, okay, so, is Moorhead the only one within Clay County that has their own MS4?
No, the city of Dilworth is also an MS4, as is the DOT in this area.
Okay, so that means they have their own policy.
Correct.
Okay, so we don't regulate what goes on with it within the city of Moorhead or the city of Dilworth?
No, about, was it 2 years ago, I think we came to the board and approved a memorandum of understanding with the city of Dilworth and the city of Moorhead that broke down the jurisdictional boundaries as to whose MS4 would be taking precedence over whose in which areas.
Nathan, in your studying this, and over time, and obviously a lot of it makes sense to do so that we're not contaminating water supplies during the construction phase of something, but is there anything here that strikes you of concern from a highway engineer and the amount of highway construction projects that we got? And I guess what I'm asking is, what's this going to add to the cost of a construction project?
We have, this permit is separate from our stormwater construction permits.
Okay.
So what it would, so far nothing, I guess is the answer. So far nothing.
So this is more for the rural developments with homes and parking lots and,
It is, but it also regulates what we discharge from highways into road ditches and then into the rivers. So right now, we're not seeing any increased cost, but it could in the future, if we're given a waste load allocation, a total daily maximum load that says that okay, Clay County, you're a permit holder, the most sediment that you can send out from these outlets and these, for this given time period is X. And at that time, then we would have to do some engineering and put in measures and controls to reduce our volume and do the same things that the developers are going to be required to do. So far, we've been able to utilize our right-of-way and our ditches to do a lot of that, to meter the water out slowly and settle it out, and they haven't required us to do that. But if things change and we're given a total daily maximum load limit, then we will have to start looking at some of that. But right now, nothing.
How are builders gonna be notified that they're gonna have to do this, or developers, I mean, are we gonna go out, do they have to come in here for permit, then we tell them, you gotta do this here first, or?
It's a component of the planning and zoning process. So when they submit a request for a new development for a building permit, they'll have to do the work that's required in this ordinance to prove that they're not exceeding the limits that are set forth in the permit and that they're complying with all the best management
And
practices.
they have to go to the townships first, though, don't they, or do they have to get a permit from the townships?
well, the townships sign off on a building permit, I think, is,
Well, that's right, I agree, right, I think they have to sign off first before they even come here. So the townships have to be aware of this here too, then,
Yeah.
wouldn't they? I don't know.
well, I think, if I recall, the rural construction, the way it works is they come to the planning office to get a building permit. And then from there, they send them back to the local jurisdiction for sign off.
That's
Okay.
correct.
I
Yep,
think
that's
I
correct.
think that's the normal process. I know that was the normal process when I was a township
Well,
supervisor.
I've seen them at township meetings where they come with
Yeah.
their plans.
Yeah, but
and all that.
but by that time, they've
They
already
have to go
been
to
to
the
the
county
county
first.
first.
Okay.
Because the county is the one, through Tim's office, that would have to notify them of all of these regulations that they have to follow. Although Nathan's here to to tell us what it is. It's still going to be planning, and which really surprises me that because this is a change that goes within our. Does this become part of another ordinance? Is this part of our?
It's a standalone
Oh,
ordinance.
it's a standalone one.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just curious why the planning commission wouldn't have heard this before us.
Because it's an amendment to a pre-existing statute,
Okay.
and so
Because it is a land use issue, right?
it is a land use issue. But if we're amending a pre-existing ordinance, we don't have any,
Okay, as long as you're comfortable with that,
yes.
it seems to me that I just don't want to just be doing something, going over something that the planning commission should have looked
No.
at. And if we're confident that this is not for them to do, then I'm okay with it. But these regulations and these things oftentimes, and I remember back when we were doing the construction project on County 26 and another project up in the Hitterdall area, there got to be several components of that project that required an awful lot of extra effort on our part for, and we actually disputed a lot of it, that in terms of how we had to have all these little fence things up everywhere, and it cost the contractors a lot of money, and nobody really felt that there was any concern of contamination, but it is what it is. So these are mandated changes.
Correct.
Any other questions? Anyone else that would like to be heard on the stormwater management system ordinance?
I move to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's the board's wishes on the ordinance.
I guess I make a motion to approve it.
I'll make a second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in
Yeah,
favor?
can I
Kevin, go ahead.
With these changes in place, if there is what's the process of this is open, a lot of these things, when you're out in the field, it's open to interpretation. What is the process for, say the county is doing a highway construction project and MPCA says, well, you're in violation of this and we don't think we are. What is the recourse?
There are appeals.
Okay.
The first appeal, I believe, is initially through the MPCA,
Okay.
and then if we still wouldn't agree, we could take it to a district court
So
level.
the appeal goes to the people who set the mandates
Yeah,
on us.
well, initially.
And so the same would apply to a developer or contractor?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Bill, come on up. We have Bill Christian, FM Metropolitan Council of Governments, Executive Director. We have a program update. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
Again, my name is Bill Christian. I'm the newly minted Executive Director at MetroCog, and for at least the next 2 or 3 months, I'll be referred to as the new Wade, so feel free to do so. I appreciate the time this morning to talk to you. I'm here on kind of a twofold mission. One is to introduce myself, to let you know who I am. The second is just an annual visit with the jurisdictions to keep you up to date on what we're doing, what we actually do, and anything that we could do for you. We are here to serve our local jurisdictions. That's our primary purpose. We are the designated Council of Governments, which means we do planning on a regional basis, so things that have a regional significance we try to do. We're also the designated metropolitan planning organization for the area, which means we are mandated by the federal government to do long-range and short-range transportation planning for the greater Fargo-Moorhead area. Excuse me. As I stated, we do a lot of planning currently. We have some planning studies in Clay County that are going on. We're doing a community development plan for the city of Hawley. We're also updating the zoning ordinances in the city of Dilworth. We're working closely with the Heartland Trail Group to get an alignment of the Heartland Trail into and through Clay County to tie in with the Moorhead Trail System. We're also looking at traffic counts in the area. Our traffic count program is coming due this year, so staff will be working with the county engineer to identify locations in which we need to count traffic, get vehicle counts, get truck counts, and we'll apply that to our long-range planning efforts, but we'll also use that to do various and sundry other transportation-related objects. We're also in the city of Moorhead doing grade separation study for downtown. That's about halfway through the process. We're coming close to getting a preferred alternative, which will probably be 11th Street, given all the issues surrounding trying to fit an underpass into downtown. It's a very opportune moment. The state of Minnesota has seen that rail safety is important at this point in time. They released a report a couple of weeks ago, and they're looking for safety projects, and this would definitely qualify. So there's 3 tiers. One, the projects that are ready to go. Second tier, those projects that are in planning, in which our case is. And a third, they're trying to get other planning studies going. But at this point, it looks good that funding could be available sooner than later for that project. So we're looking forward to finalizing the project and actually applying for federal funds to get that accomplished, federal and state funds. We're in the process of developing the 2016 budget. So I'm here today also to apprise you of that and let you know that if you have any projects that you would like to see us do, to contact us and we'll see what we can do. We can't accommodate every request, but we try our best. For the most part, if it's a transportation project, we can use federal transportation dollars. We have a very good supply of money, but it requires a 20% local match. If it's a more localized situation like a planning study or something like that, we can't use federal transportation money for the entire sum, so it would have to be supplemented heavily with local funding. So we're looking for any projects that you think that would fit under our purview. Again, we have young but a very good staff. They know what they're doing and they can turn things around rather quickly. Commissioner Gross is on our policy board, and I think, and I'm going to mispronounce your name.
Mojo.
Thank you. Is the alternate to our policy board. I will invite you. Our policy board meets the 3rd Thursday of every month. Our technical committee meets the 2nd Thursday of every month. They are open to the public, but I always thought make an offer to all of the commissioners and councilmen to stop in every once in a while just to see what's going on and how the MPO is run.
Mr. Chair.
Wayne?
You mentioned the term preferred alternative. I think I know what that means. What could you define that for me, please, regarding mentioning 11th Street?
A preferred alternative is the one project that we think would best serve the situation. They go through many alternatives. One is to put an underpass in at 8th Street, at 14th Street and 11th Street. Given the closeness of the 2 lines of rail that run through, plus historic properties, a whole sundry of other issues that would eliminate some of the options that are available.
11th Street then is the preferred alternative.
So when it's all sorted out, the preferred alternative is the one that best meets what we can do for that area.
Thank you. Now I understand.
Again, I'm here to answer questions. I will pass out my cards. I have my cell number on there, so I am available 24/7. I will caveat that if you call me at 2 in the morning, any advice or data I give you should be considered suspect. So again, I'm here as executive director on behalf of staff, just to remind you that we are here to serve you. We are a service organization, and it is our responsibility and our charge in life to make sure our jurisdictions get long and short range planning efforts done to the best of our ability. And with that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Bill? Thanks for your help with the Heartland Trail. That's a,
And Dan Farnsworth, the staff, is doing an excellent job with that. Our new GIS person, Dave Burns, is working heavily trying to produce enough maps to give you a lot of options available for the alignment, so.
We appreciate it.
So who all is representing us now on the regional board that deals with the STIPs and all that stuff?
And Commissioner Gross is on our
Okay.
policy block. They will approve all of our short-range planning, our transportation improvement program, which feeds into the STIP. We don't have direct representation on the state when they're updating the STIP. That's the State Transportation Improvement Program. That is more or less done on their level. But on our level, we submit annually to the DOT's Transportation Improvement Program.
But we're a member of our regional group. That
Oh,
means
the ATP.
The ATP.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
I am currently the representative on the ATP. I'm also the chair this time. Wade left that responsibility
Okay.
for me.
So does Clay County just have you as the,
Clay County, I'm trying to remember, I've been to 2 meetings so far. I don't believe, we represent the MPO at the ATP.
Right.
I believe that Jody
Martinson?
Martinson is the district engineer. I
Right.
believe she's on that committee as well to represent Clay County interests.
I know we've either had Dave Overbo or Bob Zimmerman. Our 2 engineers have also been on, that ATP is an important,
It is important. They do make determination of what projects are recommended for state and federal transportation funds. They also shortlist and recommend transportation alternative program projects.
we have nobody from here on the ATP right now.
No one from this commission, no, sir.
That's something you should research. You'd be good on, it should be good for you to get onto that. It's regional, but what it is, it's all the federal dollars, and they kind of divvy up those federal dollars, and one year Clay County might not get any projects, or Morehead might not get any projects, but then, and they kind of try to be fair with it over a given period of time, but it's really important to have the MPO voice there, but in addition to the MPO voice, I think somebody, whether it's a city of Morehead or Clay County, should try to get somebody on that. I know I was on it for, I think, 3 years, and I really enjoyed it, and you could really see the significance and importance of that group and how funding can come to your county for projects.
It actually meets next week, and I'd offer ride share to anyone who would like to go down with us. Dan Farnsworth and I are traveling.
That's in Fergus Falls?
That's in Fergus Falls, correct. And I can forward to you the information on the meeting if...
I don't need any more committees, but I think Jenny does.
Wow.
I can only say for sure that the coffee is not as good as what you can get elsewhere. So.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions for Bill? Thank you, Bill.
Thank you,
Mr.
Judge.
Bell.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
You too.
I do want to mention Bill has taken over for Wade, and he brought to us years and years of experience from, I think it's Wichita, Kansas he came from, or Omaha? Was it?
22 years in Omaha, 5 years in Kansas. This is my 28th year as working as an
Where in Kansas?
Wichita.
Great.
Yeah, and he has done very well so far, and I'm very happy with it.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, let's see. Rhonda, come on up.
Perfect timing. Larry, you
Request to replace a financial worker. Rhonda Porter.
Yes.
Good morning.
All right, I have my financial supervisor with me, Larry Young, today as
Morning, Larry.
well. So, okay, we are here to request approval to fill a vacancy due to a resignation that will happen in the next week or so. Again, this is our income maintenance unit that we've talked so much about over the last couple of years, and the workload in that area. So we're hopeful that you will agree to fill the position. We've had quite a bit of turnover in that unit. If you remember it, at the point probably 6-8 months ago, we had about 40% turnover in the last few years. So we've had a lot of retirements, a lot of new staff. This is a area that administers all of the public assistance state and federal programs. So the cash grant programs, emergency assistance, the food support program, all of the public programs for elderly services, disability services. So they've got an enormous workload, and we do not feel we can lose a position. So, Larry, if you have anything to add?
I completely agree. Healthcare has increased dramatically, I think, with the Affordable Care Act, so our caseloads are getting higher and higher all the time. So.
Wayne?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve to replace the financial worker as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda,
Yeah,
that's,
thanks.
is that a billable?
Yes, this is a position that receives the federal financial participation, so 50% of that is covered under that federal participation. Yes.
Sometime it'd be interesting to figure out why the turnover rate is so high.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it'd be worth a look.
Mhm. Yeah, in this particular situation, our
Is it
employee
just-
is moving out of state.
Okay.
So, yeah, we do have to continually look at that. Most of the recent ones have been retirements we
Okay.
had, but there are a number that move on for other jobs or they relocate. It's a program areas that the learning curve in these programs, they say oftentimes you're not really feeling comfortable until you've been in it for 2 years. Very, very complicated state and federal programs. And so we are constantly kind of assessing what can we do to make it a little bit more manageable and keep people in their spots, especially because of the training that we invest in our employees.
Great, yeah.
So it's a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy? We have Kathy McKay, Public Health Director, for request to replace a vacated position in detox. Good morning.
Good morning. We have another resignation, an individual that's retiring, and it's a .6 LPN, so 3-day a week. As you can see on there, we did have 3.8 positions, and I did write in here that we had hired 2 full-time LPNs. So as of this information being sent, we now have one of those LPNs that has given us a notice. So we now are down to just one LPN that's going to take a position. So we have really a total of 2.0 FTEs combining all of those. So we had 3.8 positions, and now this .6 that's being vacated. We hired the one LPN that is still on board, as far as we know. And so we really have a total of 2.0. So I guess my request would be that we can fill those positions. It's really difficult to recruit LPNs. We put the ad out to all of the places we could possibly think of with HR's help, and we just are getting no applicants. So my request would be to fill that 2.0 in whatever way we can, whether it's with a .8, .6, a full-time, 2 full-times, just to give us a little bit flexibility because of the shortage of nurses. We're hearing that even when we met with Sanford, they had to close a couple of beds on a unit because they just can't recruit the nurses that they need. So we're experiencing that shortage, and we're certainly experiencing in this area with the LPN opening.
Questions?
Well, I think it's something that we have to do, but I think there's another underlying thing that concerns me a little bit, and if you put out job applications and you or requests and you get absolutely zero, it makes you wonder about what package you're offering and is it reasonable. I mean, this goes more to probably all of our agencies within Clay County. This is probably the one that's most significantly tied differently than to other counties that we compare ourselves to, and that's because of the metropolitan area and the healthcare issues that happens between Fargo and Moorhead. It's easy for us to say, well, we need to tie our compensation package fairly to our 13 counties that we always compare to. But when all of our competition for these particular jobs in the healthcare industry, we're not competing with those 13 counties. We're competing with the big buildings across the river. And so I think if this is going to be a continued trend, we need to have HR review this whole compensation package and the line item for your entire department. Because this has been an ongoing deal since I've been on this board, where Kathy, how many times you come to us and you said that we had to go above step C or they wouldn't even touch it. And it's a competitive thing that's directly tied to our market, to this region. So having said that, that's an issue that we need to review on a long-term basis. But to get you where you're going now, and if I didn't already, I would move to approve the authorization for them to fill that 2.0 in any way they can.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. How about, do you have a short update on how things are going with our North Dakota clients and the VA? You had some...
The VA contract was just signed, so we will be talking with the VA locally to determine how we're going to process those clients coming in. So that will be just implemented this week, but I'm not sure that we'll see any clients yet until we come up with a process. So that is in motion. And then the other contract we have is going quite well. Janelle just received an email again about how much they appreciate the process with their clients, and they have nothing but good things to say about that. And we do serve a lot of clients through Southeast, and that is going well according to them. So
Keeping our census up too.
our census has been higher. I know in this last month, I think you had to turn away 10 clients.
Yeah.
So we're inching up toward that capacity, and then sometimes having to send clients out. So we talked about that when we see this consistently, we would come back to the board and look at a possibility of opening up the additional beds.
Good. Thank you, Kathy, Janelle.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank
your
you.
update.
Measles.
Just a minute.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Measles.
we had,
Mr.
measles
Chair.
outbreak. You were going to give us a short update.
Yeah, I asked that Kathy speak on this, if she would. Kathy, if you could talk about what you hear regarding North Dakota, Minnesota, nationally, how the vaccination process works throughout this area. If you could give us some kind of update. We have both Kathys here.
This for me?
Good morning. Yes, you can.
Pass it.
Thank you. Give her one too. That's just a little bit of information on that form. Mr. Berg had asked us to talk a little bit about the measles per your request, Mr. Ingersoll. Measles, as you are well aware, and it's all over the news, it's a very contagious disease. It was eliminated in the United States in 2000. We had no measles cases for well over a year. And now, because of international travel, there's many countries that measles is circulating pretty heavily. And so there's the population that doesn't believe in vaccines, and there's also the international travel. So really our best defense is the immunization. So that's what we're stating is immunization is the way to eradicate this disease. So in 2014, we saw about 644 cases in the United States. That's the largest outbreak we've had in many years. And then in 2015, we had another, so just this year, another additional 100 cases. Right now in Minnesota, we only have the one case. So that is good news. They've been working at, that was an international travel, by the way. That was not part of that large outbreak that happened in Disneyland. So this was just an international traveler that brought the measles back. And they did their best to contain that individual, follow up with all the contacts. So what we hear right now is there isn't any additional cases. We don't have any in Clay County. That's good. If we do have a case in Clay County, obviously public health will have to ramp up. We will have a lot of work in containing that and following up with contacts. It's really contagious. Measles is a respiratory illness, so coughing, sneezing, high fever, you eventually develop the rash. You can be in a room with someone with measles, they cough, sneeze, it can linger for 2 minutes, so it's really contagious. You can actually pick that up even through the air, and of course it's on surfaces. It can be a deadly disease. It's pretty significant when they're, you know, some people die from measles. Some people develop a brain encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain. They can have, it can cause them to be deaf. It can cause mental retardation. There's a lot of impacts with the measles.
Wayne?
I would think most of us sitting here, maybe with the exception of Jenny, had measles as children.
Correct.
And once one has had measles, is one immune?
Yes, adults born in 1957 or after should have at least 1 dose of the measles vaccine. If you were born in 1956 or earlier, you probably had measles as a child, and then you are immune. So if you know that you had measles for sure, you would have the immunity, so you would not need that.
Okay,
So,
one other question, Mr. Chair, if I may. Do you hear anything in this area, Clay County in particular, about parents or individuals who have opted not to have their children vaccinated, and what the process is to possibly get them to change their minds?
yes, the measles vaccine, it's measles, mumps, rubella, it's a combination vaccine, normally given at the age of 12 to 15 months, and then the second dose is prior to kindergarten, 4 to 6-year-olds. Minnesota law requires that, but parents have exemptions. There's 2 exemptions in Minnesota. One is a medical exemption. Your healthcare provider, for instance, maybe a child has cancer and they just can't get this vaccine. So that is an exemption that's allowed. The other exemption is if a parent just has a personal reason or a religious reason, whatever, they can sign an exemption form. I believe that form in Minnesota has to be notarized, and then they're allowed that exemption. So there are a number of exemptions in Clay County. Do you remember the stats, Kathy? Like, it's a small percentage.
It's a relatively small percentage.
So it says the state rate is 91%.
Yes.
Is Clay County similar, do you know?
Yes,
It's-
very similar to the percentage of vaccinations. It's the unvaccinated population. And going back to your question, Mr. Ingersoll, you know, our best defense is the vaccine. It's to instill the fact that vaccines are relatively safe. We still get the hype that people are concerned about the safety of vaccines. Vaccines are very safe. You're far better to get the vaccine than certainly to get the disease.
Is there any talk at the legislative level that you are aware of that would take away the exemptions for personal reasons?
I think there might be a bill this year, and I'm not well read up
Okay.
on that, and the Minnesota Department of Health has not taken a stand on that, but I think there might be a bill that may be presented
Thank
to
you
talk
very much.
about that.
Frank?
Of all these cases, there were 644 last year and 100 this year. Are any of those cases from people who did have the vaccination? I mean, are these all people that were not vaccinated for it, or?
The
I mean, I'm just
majority-
wondering how good the immunization is.
It is high efficacy rate in the 90%, 97%, or 93%. However, if you have the vaccine, just like any vaccine, there are still a small percentage that could have a mild case of the measles. There's always that chance, but it's certainly much milder than you would if you were not vaccinated. It's the unvaccinated population that we're really concerned about with the spread of this.
Jenny?
I know that there's been some talk in the past about the autism connection, and clearly that's been proven to not be true. Are you
Correct.
taking the opportunity to educate these people that are coming in and maybe opting out, or are the people coming in not the people we're worried about?
Yeah, the people that have the exemptions, we're certainly, particularly when we see them in our public health clinic, when they come in for immunizations, we always stress that there really is no evidence that vaccine causes any of that, autism or anything else. There's no evidence, and I believe even the president stated that just a few weeks ago. There is no evidence about vaccines causing illness. But, you know, you still get the people that really just aren't believers and are insisting that they just don't want to have the vaccine for various reasons. So you can provide as much education as we can, which we do, and you'll still have people that opt out, which is going to be unfortunate with an outbreak like this, because it is so highly contagious. Any questions?
Thank you for being here. Appreciate
Sure.
your update.
Thank
And
you.
what you presented to us here in writing.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
Yeah, just everybody get vaccinated.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
Okay, Sheriff's Office, request to replace Office Supervisor and Office Associate positions. Good morning.
Morning, man.
He's there if you need him, if you need backup, Bill. So.
Okay, well, we are here to discuss our retirements, which we just received their letters this morning, so. But I know Darren and Matt have been working on it, so I'm gonna let them speak. So,
Matt, go ahead.
Good morning. So we have, as I mentioned previously, we've had two of our office associates retiring coming up in May. They're both going to retire the same day on May 29th. Linda Heller is currently our office manager. She's going to start her 45th year here in March, and Fran Victor will be starting her 29th year here in May. So throughout the history of the Sheriff's Office, Linda Heller's position was an office manager. She was basically a team leader, didn't supervise anybody. That position, I'm not sure when it was developed, it was many years ago. Currently, we have 4 office staff positions there, not including that position. So we thought it would be best to change that now and have that position actually supervise those 4 other full-time employees. In doing such, I've worked with Karen Brook, the HR director, to figure out where we're going to place that position. Currently, the office manager position is on line 11 of the grid, and adding those supervisor duties and some years of experience moves to line 16 on the grid. Do you have any questions on that before I continue with the associate?
Any questions for? No, go ahead, Matt.
So the office associate, that's a lot more simpler. That's grade 10. It's going to remain on grade 10 of the grid. The nuts and bolts after the cost impact of that, we're actually, when you combine those 2 positions, we're going to save $3,500 in the 2015 budget. That's not considering their payout for vacation and healthcare savings plan for sick time. So,
Okay.
and then just a little additional follow-up or approval would be also the starting time for those both employees. I don't believe we're going to have any internal candidates for the office supervisor position, so we would prefer to fill that 3 weeks in advance. And then the office associate 1 week in advance. Those are odd numbers, but the 29th of May, that retirement date, that's in the middle of a pay period, so we would start both new employees at the start of a pay period. That's cleaner for the auditor's office and HR. So, and I would like to, I appreciate both of those ladies' willingness. They've agreed to stick around those during that time frame. It doesn't do us any good to set that time up as training and then they take vacation. So they've been very great to work with and have been willing to stick around those at that time.
Good, thanks, Jenny.
You guys must have a great place to work if clearly, 45 years and 29 years, it's great.
Yeah, they've been great employees and that's hard to replace. That amount of experience is very difficult to replace.
45 months.
and what did she say she's been through, 5 or 6 sheriffs?
5, 6.
Would have been Adolph Olson when she probably started, so.
Yes.
Great.
Any other questions for the chief deputy or sheriff on this issue?
I move forward to go forward with the request.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All the same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, gentlemen. Okay, let's see, Dave's not here, so Frank, you want to give your report?
The only meeting I had, not really a meeting, I attended a retirement dinner for Karen Carlsrud from Soil and Water the other Wednesday night, and other than that, it was no other meetings.
Thank you. Kevin?
Okay, let's see here. Okay, this last week, we had, on Wednesday, we had the Diversion Authority Public Outreach Meeting. It was held out in West Fargo. We talked a little bit about the upcoming visit that we had with Major General Weir. We did have the Business Leaders Task Force members present, and they talked about how they'd gone to the state legislature, and that's both the Realtors and the Home Builders Association, and they both of those groups strongly support the efforts of the Diversion Authority. We did get a little bit of an update on the cemetery issue. There are 6 North Dakota cemeteries, and 4 of them have not had the land permission slips to come back to do the testing for the cemeteries. And then there's 5 Minnesota cemeteries, and there's 2 of them that have not returned the forms, voluntary forms, to be able to get onto those cemeteries to do the necessary work to determine if some sort of protection mechanisms could be afforded to them. So that we continue to work on that, and that, again, typically has been on the Minnesota side, a Buffalo Red River Watershed District job to do, so we'll see where that goes. If nothing else, if that doesn't work, then certainly Clay County has to have that done as well. But I would prefer it to stay with the watershed. It's on water projects, they're the ones who are supposed to do those things. So then on Thursday, we actually had the Diversion Authority meeting, and there wasn't a lot going on that day. There was some talk about the North Dakota, Cass County and Fargo are doing a special assessment district, a vote on a special assessment district, and it's not meant to collect more money, it's meant to be a backup for the sales tax. And the goal there would be, by having the special assessment district in place, they will be able to get cheaper funding dollars to pay back, as opposed to if you put your sales tax as collateral, you don't get as good of interest rates as if you have a special assessment. The intent is never to charge those homers those special assessments, but it's anyway, that's a tool. And I think that they send those ballots out, and I think the vote is, Brian, is it in April? They're expecting the vote to be done in April. And that will be for everybody that's, I think, in certain areas outside of the protected area of the diversion. And again, I have a copy of the full agenda if somebody wants to see it. And then on Friday, we were back again there at the Diversion Authority at 3 in the afternoon, and that was for the visit of Major General Weir. And at that meeting, we had Mayor Williams from Ward was there, and Mayor Mahoney, and our Diversion Chair Vaniel, and congressional members Senator Hoeven, Congressman Peterson and Congressman Kramer were there, and then there was staff of Senator Heitkamp and Senators Klobuchar and Franken. So there was quite a few dignitaries there. And there was a good conversation, and it was an update on the cemetery issue. The big thing that we're looking at now is this alternative way of constructing, where it's a public-private partnership that was put into the last WRDA bill, which allows and gives weight to core projects who incorporate a public-private way of constructing, and in other words, it can save the, in this particular instance, what was the federal share of this project, $800 and some million. They figure they can cut the federal share down to $400 million by doing this public-private partnership. And so, I mean, that certainly is significant when it comes to, you know, taking our project to the federal level and asking for financial support. It's certainly, the criteria is that there's a lot more local interest and investment in the project, and it's hopefully will, and it takes our ratio from a number that was low threes to like 3.84, you know, to 1 in terms of cost to benefit ratio. So it really improves that. And the legislatures that were there were very, very positive about that. They really liked it. Congressman Peterson, of course, raised the issues on the Minnesota side about the impacts and had some questions there. And hopefully we can get those resolved. There was some discussion about, we're working with the NDSU to try to come up with a plan for all of those ag owners out there that can replace what would be their crop insurance. That, you know, because once they get in and a FLOIS agreement is given to them, they would no longer be covered under crop insurance. And it's the Diversion Authority's desire and commitment to find a way to replace that for those impacted ag owners. You know, but unfortunately, that's a study right now that we haven't been able to bring to them to show them, and so they're waiting and they're frustrated. It's kind of like those homeowners who are trying to sell their home and they can't sell it because of the project. They're frustrated, and this is an issue with the farmers. They're frustrated because they keep seeing this project moving forward, and some of them are going to have their land inundated, and there's no talk of real compensation other than what is out there from the federal government on the FLOIS easement. And it's, you know, I speak as a Diversion Authority member, our goal is to try to find something that will compensate them in those years. And I think what was, and I know Jenny, you were at the meeting on Friday, and I can't remember who else was there, but I'll sure you guys. But one of the comments that they made with the redesign of this project is that it's anticipated that it would be used 1 out of 10 years. So in other words, 1 in 10 years, this land and the staging area would be needed for the project. And the other 9 years would all be able to be tillable, and other than
Organic.
Huh?
Other than organic.
Yeah, organic would not be, and that's an issue for. I believe we have a couple of organic farmers. We know one of them right now is very interested in looking at swapping, and I'm not sure if that one's on the North Dakota. I know we have an organic farmer on the Minnesota side that's not interested, but one of the options there is to find them new land where they could restart their organic farming operation. Is it ideal? No, but does it allow them to do it? Yes. So that was, Matt, was it on that meeting. Then on, and I'm sorry, Brian, you're going to have to, or Wayne, you're going to have to report on the Clay County Joint Powers, because I totally forgot about that meeting that morning.
I want to know.
Jenny is filling in for his replacement.
Oh, okay, so you can do it with your,
Yep.
okay, good, okay. And then yesterday afternoon, we had our solid waste feasibility study meeting with, it's a kind of getting more information on on the, looking at the new transfer station and a new MRF and a new household hazardous waste facility, combined facility. That is a work in progress. We've got some more updated numbers. We still have a lot of work to do in terms of getting, just getting more information so that we can take it back to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and then to the City of Morehead and to the County Board for its thoughts. And Grant might have some extra to add to that as well. And then last night we did attend the watershed meeting in Barnesville, where they're discussing the Diversion Authority's 2015 budget. And this morning we had a PIC meeting, and in that PIC meeting, it was dealing with a personnel issue that will come before us next week. And so I'm not going to get into any more of that, but it'll be on our agenda next week, and we'll move on from there. Mr. Chair, that's it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I know, it's like
Jenny.
a week-long deal there.
Thank you. Last Thursday, I was able to attend the Joint Powers meeting bright and early, where we recapped the intergovernmental retreat and overall felt that we had some really good feedback on that, kind of discussed how we wanted to tweak it for next year. Mr. Redlinger also gave an update on some transportation projects that they're looking at in regards to train safety in Moorhead, and so we had some good dialogue with that. In the afternoon, I attended the Land Management of the Diversion Authority meeting, where we did discuss a lot of the topics that Commissioner Campbell also discussed at the Diversion Authority meeting. There were some talks with staging area mitigation. North Dakota Class County residents, they had sent out 50 letters to some residents in regards to moving into the southern Oxbow development area, and just kind of had some brief discussion on if any Clay County residents would be interested in moving into that. I've not heard from anyone in regards to that, but we are also waiting on the EIS, the Minnesota DNR report. We talked about some the cultural resources surveys with the cemeteries that Commissioner Campbell talked about. And also, as Cass County moves forward in assessing properties, the Mid-America Steel property and the Howard Johnson property, they would like to give those businesses kind of information sooner rather than later, so they're trying to expedite those as well. On Friday, I had an opportunity I was invited to sit in the League of Women Voters meeting, where Dana Delval from the Arts Partnership spoke very eloquently about the great things that they're doing in the community. The Giving Hearts Day is coming up, so she also reminded us that they're a great one to give to, and as there are many very good ones in the area. I also had the opportunity to meet with Congressman Peterson and the representatives from Amy Klobuchar's office and Al Franken's office before the meeting with the Major General at the Diversion Authority, and I felt it was a great opportunity to continue to ask critical questions as this project moves forward, and appreciate the pros and cons of the project as we continue to kind of figure out what is the best way to mitigate this option. And last night, I was also invited by some area farmers to attend the Buffalo Red meeting, where they were discussing the FM Diversion Authority budget, and a lot of the community leaders were also there with concerns, and appreciate, again, like I said, asking critical questions as the project moves forward. So with that, I think that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to, if I can, follow up to what Jenny talked about with the in the Oxbow area where they had those expanded lots there, and there was an invitation out from anybody in Cass or Clay County who might be the impacted area where they would be looking to move them to another site as an opportunity for them to move into the new Oxbow lots. I do want to say that same discussion has started and taken place with Comstock and the proposed protection area of Comstock. We've asked them if they would like to expand that parameter to allow for additional lots. And again, it would be an option then for any Minnesota, or for that matter, North Dakota landowners who would be misplaced would have some first options to be able to move in there. And I believe in the Congress, and I wasn't at that particular meeting, but I believe that obviously Comstock has concerns about this, and it's not their number one priority to want it done. But they also realize that if the project was done, that yes, they would want to be protected. They'd want to have the ring dikes. And along with that, then I do believe that they felt it would be good to have an expanded area where they could have additional lots available. And that was also the issue with their lagoons, I think.
Right, I was at that meeting.
Yeah, so I think, their first priority is to, if we could find other ways to resolve the impacts, that's what they would prefer. But if the project were to go forward and the EAS comes out in the way that it does, and that impact, I think the impact level to Comstock was certainly less than a foot, I think, is what they've talked about. And I think that came out at, because somebody asked about the cemetery by Comstock.
Right.
And because I think that question was asked at the Diversion Authority meeting, or it was Congressman Peterson asked the question on Friday, and the answer was fully implemented and using it all, there'd be 7/10 of a foot of water on the Comstock cemetery.
Right, but the cemetery is a mile east of town, so town would, I think it's anywhere between 1 and 3 feet in the Comstock general vicinity.
Which still falls in the area of certainly being protected, and that in the plans it calls for Comstock to be protected. So anyway, I just wanted to give that extra little thing, that there is going to be some opportunities if this moves forward for replaced landowners to move either into the Oxbow area or the Comstock area as a choice.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, I had Restorative Justice and Reentry Program meeting last week. That program's going well. It's the programs that deal with the kids that are in trouble and alternatives to going to court, and a lot of kids involved, but it's a good program and going well. I had solid waste. Kevin reported on that. A lot going on there, kind of similar to our jail issues. A lot of things we're going to be dealing with in the near future. PIC meeting this morning, Kevin reported on that. We'll be bringing something to the board next week on that, and I also attended the watershed meeting. And Dave, why don't you come up, we'll get yours done.
Break your other leg trying to get in.
Morning.
Good morning. I've got 3 items today for the Highway Department. First item being approval of our County Road 18 construction project final voucher. This past summer we did about 5 miles of grading just north of town. The contractor was Midwest Contracting from Marshall, Minnesota. The original bid was $1,953,335. And, the project went really well. It took a little longer on the back end than we wanted. We were told that we'd get the gravel surfacing on within just days because this contractor had 40 trucks and they'd come rolling in. Well, schedules don't always work out that way. It seemed like last year was the year for that to happen. But we did finally get it done. There was a little overruns on the project. The total overrun was about $122,000, and it was pretty much based on 2 items, and it was about $60,000 apiece. when we design the projects, we take a look at the old plans and we see what we did back in the 60s or 70s, and there was supposed to be a certain amount of salvage aggregate in place. We take that material off, put it to the side, widen the road, then bring that back on. For one reason or another, there was an awful lot more aggregate than we expected, which is a little rare, but so then you have to pay them then that additional amount to move it. So, and it's all done by surveying, so there's no way to mess up on it. So that was one of the first overrun. The other overrun was basically on the new gravel going back on. There was some soft spots and some areas that we needed additional gravel, and that ended up being a lot more than we had hoped to, and that was about another 60,000. So that accounts for the two. Other than that, I went item by item yesterday, and pretty much everything was real close to right on. The final number to be approved was $2,075,441.85.
Wayne?
Dave, where does that 122 come from for the overrun?
That's going to come out of our gas tax dollars, our state aid allotment dollars. So between that and our bond, it's kind of it's a combination of the two, the 10 million, so.
Board's wishes on number one?
Move to approve?
I'll second.
A motion and a second, Kevin?
The material where we had too much of that does that have any value to it for anything else?
Base material, I guess, is what we used it for.
Okay, so you pulled some out of there, so there was still another value there for another project.
Yeah, what we probably ended up doing is we probably ended up having less unclassified excavation. We probably didn't have to dig as much material out because we had more base going on. And I think that's what happened. I think there was an underrun in the amount of dirt work that we had to do. I don't have the exact reasoning on why we weren't quite, the only thing that I should have spent a little more time talking to Nathan on is with the new gravel that put on there. That's an awful lot of new gravel going on, and I don't know if it was all soft spots or why, but I understand the salvage aggregate. That makes sense. That happens quite a bit. Normally it's the other way around. Normally you're shorter, so you're anticipating putting on 10 inches, and by the time you dig it out of the old road bed and put it back on, you have about 8, and then you ended up needing more. So that didn't seem to be the case in this situation, but I know we were quite a bit over in gravel on our 52 project, and that had a lot to do with how they built. As it widened out to the slopes where it went down, it was gravel that got sloughed over the edge there a little bit, and it just, constructability-wise, we didn't estimate for that amount of loss, or, there's just no way you can do it. You have big equipment and you're blading the stuff out there. There's no way to make a perfect slope like that, and our guys didn't design for that on 52, and I don't know if a little bit of that was for this case here as well, but I know there were some soft spots in some areas that we needed additional gravel, but we will be talking. Wayne made a good point there with regard to where our balance is. We took a good look at that, and we'll be talking about that at Highway Tracking Committee meeting, because we need to find out how these overruns are going to fit in with our 5-year plan versus our bid coming forward. So we'll be taking a look at that overrun a little bit. At this point, we do not feel it's going to change anything in the future. It's not going to limit our ability to construct 2015 projects or anything like that. So.
Okay, any other discussion on item number one? Have a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two, Dave.
If you could pass these around, Kevin. Item number 2 is with regard to the proposed correction facility geotechnical information that we're looking at hiring. I contacted a couple of the firms that have Red River Valley experience as far as soils and foundations and reports and things, and I tried to get it as apples to apples as I could, putting together a certain amount of borings, a certain amount of depth, so that they can properly put together. And the way we have it set up is we've got 2 reports. We have a preliminary report and a final report. And the reason we did that is because the exact structure isn't cut in stone yet. We don't know if it's going to be 2 stories or 3 stories or exactly how big. And with regard to the parking ramp, if there is going to be such a thing as a parking ramp, but we put the quote together so that we could get a report for a jail facility and parking ramp on the final phase of this thing. So I tried to kind of cover a broad area as we can. In looking at both reports, they're both very good. They're both very qualified firms, and their numbers are pretty close. Terracon is a little bit cheaper, as you can see in the little abstract I put together quickly this morning. I think there may be some additional soil tests that might not have been included in bronze number. And I talked to them about that this morning, and they were thinking that the preliminary test that they do might give enough information where you wouldn't need quite as many of the tests in the final end of this thing, so they put a lot of $0 in there. And I think, based on how we discussed today, there will be some of those tests need to be done, which one I think would then push the numbers further apart. And I guess, I think Terracon would be a good soil firm to work with, and that would be my recommendation. They're a little cheaper, they're a good firm. They're both good firms. It wasn't an easy decision, but based on what we got back, I guess I would recommend going with Terracon, getting the soil borings in place, and then bringing this information to the committee that's set up for this and let them continue to do their work.
Thank you. Well, we've got a lot going on with that jail issue, and before we move forward, we need this done, so any other?
Can I, Dave, so how do we know, how do they know where is the appropriate places at this point in time to do their borings?
I gave them a map based on some conversations that Brian and I had. So I think those locations could be determined at a later point, and part of that does say that in the proposals. Yeah, it doesn't have to be at a certain spot. I think I told them that the correctional facility may go north and south from the existing facility into the concrete parking lot, and then the parking ramp could be kind of southeast of there a little bit, just across from that, almost like a daycare center there by the family service building.
Yeah,
but
if there is one.
Yes, if there is one. Those locations could be altered, I believe, at any time. One other thing that Brian asked that I look into a little bit is with the City of Moorhead's levee work that was done on the west side of the street there, I talked to Bob Zimmerman a little bit, and I think that there obviously was work done with regard to that levee, but that soil information was not near the same as what we're going to be requiring. We're asking for 120-foot deep borings as well as some 30-foot deep borings and some 15-foot ones. I think their soils report is, in their work, their geo work was done for a levee. Right. I don't know that it's, but I'm going to get a hold of Tom Trowbridge and get their information and try to utilize what we can out of that. But I don't know, like Bob said, the comment he made was he didn't think an architect or a structural engineer would probably use the levee work for putting his, you know what I'm saying, to design a building. But I'll utilize what we can, I guess.
Okay, the board's wishes on this issue.
I move to approve the boring quote and go with the recommended company, Terracon.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, Dave.
Item number 3 is a proposed detour agreement with the state, with the MnDOT DOT. This happens quite a bit, and we usually do about one every other year. When they're doing work on their roadways and they have to close their roads, they need a detour route for the trunk highways. So what they're looking at doing is doing some work north of Felton on Trunk Highway 9. They would then need to detour that Highway 9 traffic. If you're going northbound, you would go west on our County Road 34 from Felton over to our County Road 11 and take County Road 11 north up to, I think it's Norman County number 39, and I believe that goes back through Boer up to Trunk Highway 9. So this is a typical detour agreement that they put together. I think their time period was 23 days, so there's a formula that they use, and there's some compensation because there's wear and tear now on our road from there. So their estimated compensation is $2,364.61. Like I said, I've had these approved before. I believe Vicki may have done the resolution that they need as well. So there's an agreement to approve as well as a resolution allowing them this summer to utilize our road for 23 days.
Questions? Kenny?
What happens if there's any additional costs that go to the repair? I mean, are we stuck with that? I mean, what happens if?
There's also like a little review period too. So we take a look, and I believe they video it as well. If there's any additional damages and things, then they got to repair that as well.
Okay, great.
Anything else? Board's wishes.
I'll move to approve this agreement.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Dave.
I just have an additional question. How are the gravel roads holding up with our mild winter thus far? I mean, I know.
So far, it's been pretty good. Yeah, you know, it's actually drier than a person would expect. Obviously, we haven't had any moisture.
Right.
You can see the other day I was coming on 336 and I looked towards Glendon and seen just a cloud of dust coming up from a truck that was coming from that direction. So, you know, we're probably, you know, losing a little bit of the fines where ideally it'd be nice if you get moisture and then it freezes down and ties
Right.
down. But I've heard good things about 52 and 18, our two construction projects. They're extremely wide at this time because they're not surfaced, and which is hard to maintain because you got to go through several times with your motor grader. But I haven't gotten too many complaints. I did early on, back in November, when things just started shutting down. You know, and
got
things were
cold
kind
fast.
of it got cold fast and it got real rough, and people were wondering, oh gosh, we're going to have to drive on this conditions all year round, you know, or through the rest of the winter. But I have not got anything since then. So,
What happened to your foot?
I was at a conference and I was playing volleyball and my Achilles tendon snapped, so I had surgery on it, and it was just a small, it was a good tear. He said it was a good tear, so I had 13 staples taken out yesterday. And, but it's healing good now. So.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Before Dave leaves, just for clarification, and I know I thought about this a little bit, and Vicki brought it to my attention here, so just so that all commissioners are aware of this, we would plan, this will be about $23,000 for the soil boring, and you know, you have started setting aside some dollars for, you know, the jail expenditures, plus we'll have some wind energy monies come in, and that is what we plan to take it out of, is those funding for the jail, so that we're all on the same page. Then, is that correct?
And Mr. I think we have another finance committee meeting coming up.
Yes, we do.
And part of that meeting was designed to talk about this, and this is going to be the first of many investments we're going to have to make moving forward with this in the near future. And you know, so not only do we have our building and design committee, we also have our finance committee, and we've got to make sure that the finance committee knows what the building committee is doing, so we can appropriately fund the necessary steps.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Brian, your report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, I did send out an email, I think it was yesterday, but so that you can put it on your agenda. I think you all said you were available for March 2nd for a city-county school joint meeting. And yesterday I did receive a notification from the city that that'd be the MCOM Center at 7 p.m. that night of March 2nd, and I believe that is a Tuesday. Monday night, okay. A Monday night. So just so that you can put it on your schedules there. Second item I have is that I'm planning to take a week's vacation, unless you change my plans. I'll be leaving Wednesday, March 25th, and returning the next Wednesday, March 4th. So,
You're leaving the 25th of March and coming back when?
February.
February,
Yeah, unless you have plans for me to leave March 25th too. No, it's February 25th and return March 4th. So,
April. Oh, February, okay.
yeah, February 25th. I said that March, huh? Okay, sorry. I was expecting them to say no, so. Anyway, then I've got a bunch of meetings here, I guess, and several of them have been touched on, so I got to kind of scan. Mike Redlinger came over one day, the city manager from Moorhead, and he wanted to talk about capital projects and different things that all that the city has going on, and he's aware of course, the jail and the law enforcement center, and he wanted to talk about how we could schedule and look at those. So we spent about an hour and a half in a discussion there, and that'll probably be one of the main topics of your city, county, school district, is all of the different capital projects and the prioritizing of them, and just a general discussion on that. I also spent some time with a representative from Edward Jones on capital financing project. They were interested in the jail as well. And, you know, frankly, it does require some discussion, as Commissioner Campbell talked about. This financing of a major project like that, you need to kind of look at all angles of it. And there are some options out there, even a PPP, a public-private partnership for a individual project like a jail or another building too that you really need to explore, so we'll be talking about that. I think Commissioner Mojo covered the JPA last Thursday morning really well. I was at that as well. Don't need to go into any more discussion on that. We did have a management team meeting, and I did cover, in fact, I covered that day that we had mentioned it last Tuesday about some of the couple of issues that were discussed, and you know, meaning make sure that we are buying locally and things along those lines. I'm sure that's an interest to all of you, but we followed up on that and make sure that occurs. And had some personnel evaluations going on. And then it was a busy week for diversion as well, and that's been talked about quite a bit. Had land management, had the full diversion meeting, had a morning meeting last Friday with in preparation, I think it was it was in the afternoon. We had 2 meetings in the afternoon, and both were with the general from the Corps of Engineers. Just one thing, and I know Commissioner Campbell alluded to the fact that the theory is for the diversion is that it would be basically used once every 10 years, but there's never been a summer event where they would expect the diversion to be utilized. In other words, not drowning out crops once that they're in the ground. It would just be a delay in planting of that one every 10 years because the idea with the water would be stored when it's still frozen, like it is every spring, and then the runoff would take place. And of course, one in every 10 years doesn't mean that it would be used to its total capacity and be on the ground for that year. It might be a year where there's only a foot within a matter of a short distance of the dam. So that could still be farmed even in that year. I know when we talk about it, we talk about utilizing the full effect of it, but remember the idea was for 35 feet flow through town, so you wouldn't even be utilized until you had surpassed the 35 feet, and then it would be to the degree that it would be used. So just something to keep in mind, that it not necessarily takes out of production than once every 10 years estimate. It would be a delay in planting, and that would be to a different degree, just for clarification on that. So I don't probably need to say anything about the diversion meeting or the full meeting. Attended the watershed meeting, and then we had another meeting kind of to talk a little bit about that as well and what effects that would have. We had PIC meeting this morning, that's been talked about. Another item that I think it's important for everyone to know here, we had talked earlier about the fact that we may be working with Chisago County in regards to legislation. I think it was Commissioner Whalen that had early discussions about that. We've tried to keep you we didn't know if it's going forward or not, but this week I did obtain a draft of that. It hasn't been necessarily introduced yet, but I just wanted all you folks to be aware that we will possibly be pursuing some legislation on a couple different fronts in regards to funding for the jail of the state. So just wanted you to be well aware of that. And I know we kind of wanted to keep you guys as well informed as we possibly can in regards to this jail going forward. We've had now a couple of meetings, 2 meetings of the construction meeting, and I think we've made a lot of progress. You had, the county board had engaged about, what was it, 2008 in a study for the jail, so that had been 7 years ago, and they had supplied 5 options. We reviewed those 5 options and narrowed it to, I think, to Commissioner Campbell, I think to 2. And if they're still valid options, which we feel they are, we're not going to try to recreate the wheel. We're probably going to go to Douglas County, which has got a similar one to the floor plan that we are wanting to go to, and we've set a date for that now to take a tour of that. And so this is going to push along pretty fast, and that's why I think these soil borings are important. We need to address how the parking around this campus, and it's really, I mean, if the committee narrows it down to an option, I think the board needs to weigh in heavily on that option to see that that's how they want to proceed. And I mean, there's a lot to do on this project, and we want you folks, everybody, to be as much engaged and involved as possible. We think we have a group that realizes the need for it. We have a community that realizes the need for it. And then the almighty gorilla in the room is of course, the mighty buck. And we'll see where we can go on that. So I know we wanted an update on that for you two gentlemen that serve on that committee. Anything else that you want to share on that jail committee right now?
Well, again, I just think that, you know, it's recognized by this board, and it's recognized certainly by law enforcement and the sheriff, and it's being more and more recognized by the public that this jail facility is needed. And you know, originally we had a target date of 4 years, and I just think if we know what's needing to be done, and we can move that up, it's only going to be a savings to everyone. And I hope we can not go so fast that we get it wrong, but to really see if we can take advantage of the marketplace and get this thing done in a shorter period of time.
Well, and I appreciate those comments, and one thing we really have to keep on our forefront is that bonding rates are still really low. Oh, he's got the gavel in his hand. So better wind it up here. I did attend that solid waste meeting. It's already been talked about. We have a meeting at 10:30 for the whole board on Saturday, right here. We plan to be in this room.
Legislative update?
At 10:30?
14th. This Saturday morning.
This coming Saturday.
This kind of something.
At what time?
10:30?
Celebrate Valentine's Day here.
Yeah. And,
Are you going to have an agenda?
yes. In fact, we're working on that with the chair right now to have somewhat of agenda, because I'm still waiting for social services with some items. The sheriff has an item, solid waste has an item, the jail is an item. So we'll have several items that we need to talk about in regards to that. And then I won't go into a lot of discussion on that, but just to keep everybody informed, I know over the last year and a half, we've talked a little bit about social services and looking at a tri-county and working something out with Becker County, and there's still some discussion in around to that. So we just want to keep everybody informed of that. With that, I think that'll conclude my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, anything else?